flow of the 16 chakras, which we studied at one of your courses.
Yeah.
It was in 2018. I remember doing this meditation, and it was beautiful and powerful. And also, I wasn't aware of these 16 chakras, and also of the Earth Star chakra, which is 18 inches below our feet.
Yeah.
And then 18 inches above the crown chakra. We've got 5 other sort of chakras, which goes into kind of an interdimensional galactic sort of space. And that, I guess it's kind of, have you heard of Keylontic science?
No.
That is beautiful too. It's quite, I'm kind of reading Voyages at the moment. I'll send you a link. I think you'll like it. Keylontic science. It talks about the 12 dimensional states, interdimensional states, galactic states, and the gate portals and stuff like that. It gets a bit deep. But could you give us an overview of this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as we were saying earlier, there are many chakras in the systems, but this is when we look at the concept of really kind of tapping into the realms of consciousness. So then there are all the acupuncture points, and I think in Ayurveda is the Mama puncture, so there's 108 points they have. The Chinese have just expanded on it. And so when we look at these chakra systems, these are the chakras that are outside of the body is how we connect to the layers of consciousness and existence itself. So as you see, you've got like the Earth Star. So that's actually, deep within the earth itself, So we do, I think a lot of people, when they do meditation, they talk about growing roots down into the ground and into the earth. But this is our kind of anchor into everything. And I know a lot when we do, when I teach people this, and sometimes I use this when people are on the couch when I'm doing work, just to ground them into the field before they get up at the end, and they're all like, oh, and, we connect them in, and you can actually see people's toes and feet kind of start to curl and point towards it. It's really a fascinating thing. And so obviously, there are the dimensional layers as we all are. And we talked about this concept of, the kind of infinite streams of consciousness itself and how we are all connected to them. So, when we begin to expand the chakra system out and we get into these higher and higher regions, and I think people really, you could kind of feel it almost fizzing, can't you, on the top of the head when we start to get into them, where the kind of real answers to life lay. So when we look at the concept of this, from a more of a Chinese medicine perspective even, there's a beautiful saying that really upsets a lot of acupuncturists, which is that physical healing is the lowest form of healing. So, what we're talking about is the concept of dis-ease, and being on the path. So, we are this infinite stream of consciousness, like wandering around in the cosmoverse as this form of energy. And so, if we, from a very high point up, so we're like looking at 16 here, I mean, we can go higher and higher and higher. I mean, that, there are, when we do like orthobionomy, and we really start to work far away from the body, you've got 35 layers of the aura that you're beginning to work with there before you even start opening people's energetic chakras. So, you can go further and further out. But, so these higher ones, when we look at kind of 12 and 11, which is the higher states of consciousness, when these are out of, all the ones kind of above the head, when these are out of alignment, so to speak, or they're not spinning the right way, or they're blocked, or there's too much energy there, or blah, 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 it begins to cause that dis-ease. It shifts us off the energetic pathway where we're coming out of flow. If we don't deal with something at that level, then it will eventually, when it's compacted in energetic form, become an emotional issue.
Right.
Yeah, because the dis-ease, the compression of it becomes an emotional issue. So then we kind of start looking, more, and we know, towards the crown chakra, the third eye. Here we would probably even take in like kind of the eggs, the kind of the just above the heads, these layers here. So if you imagine, this kind of stream of information comes from above, and it's kind of coming out, and it's condensing and condensing and condensing, and then eventually it gets to the point where it's condensed so much it begins to become into physical form. That's how condensed the energy is. And then when we understand within ourselves, and the concept of the main chakras that most people are aware of is that then it gets into that physical state. And then when we look that, when we go deeper down and we go, into the kind of down into the knees and down into the earth star, that's the real anchoring of it all. So that's almost the kind of the other point of it. So the energy comes through all the way in here, but then as well, it kind of comes through the condensation of the physical body, and then it begins to kind of break a little again as it comes into earth energy. It's a different kind of density, because obviously we can walk on the earth, so we don't fall through it, so therefore the earth is denser than we are. So this is where, where the anchor of it is and where it pulls at the bottom. So again, if that's empty and it's dragging everything through too fast, or it's, full, or you can't anchor, then again, life comes like out of sorts because we're not connected on through all that way down. So you can see here the kind of the aspects of the infinite consciousness and how it comes down into earth consciousness, which is denser than us. And then it travels obviously down into the core of the earth and continues if we want to. But for most people, the 16 that we have here is enough to start on and to expand on to begin with. But, it really, when we can meditate, and, I think you've done that with me, where we go through the process and I explain what's sitting within each energetic layer and how it presents itself in our kind of path and our journey. When we can begin to get a glimpse of what's going on in there and release or surrender to or heal or align those energies, however it may be that they need us to attend to them in that moment.
Is this kind of like what you would call as well around the biofield?
Yes, yeah. So it's very, so bioautonomy, biofield, energetics, it would be very similar to that. People will work, and again, they'll expand on that system as well. But yeah, so this is, all the, in Chinese medicine is the holographic theory. I think it's not Dan Keown, I can't remember. That's maybe Lonnie Jarrett. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about being the hologram of everything. So yeah, it's a beautiful system, and I think nowadays, where people are very much, I see very much at the minute that in the kind of system that's around, that people are becoming obsessed with the concept of healing. Where they're they're kind of almost obsessed to the point where they think there must consistently be something wrong with them. So, they're just going from one healing journey into the next. And, that's a real misalignment of those higher chakras, because when we become aligned with them, we realize that there's nothing to heal.
Yeah. Interesting.
There's nothing wrong with you. It's just a belief or a perception in itself. And when we understand that there's nothing to heal, then we can really come back to it. I was giggling. I saw, a very good description of that or thing. I saw a funny meme the other day on Instagram where you had some guy in like jeans and a t-shirt, and he was like, when you get to that point in your spiritual journey where you start wearing normal clothes again. It's obviously, I have my own choice in fashion, but I never really fell for the outfit in the first place. I had a lot of people just, well, you don't look spiritual.
What does spiritual look like?
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's it. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, mate. But it's that concept, that even with our own healing, we can get caught within our own healing. And it's those infinite loops,
Interesting.
that can be stemmed within this space.
Sort of like a trap, isn't it? It can be a bit of a trap. Then the spiritual ego as well, that can be quite...
yeah. But, that's the ego. And that doesn't exist within these spaces. So, once we get out of our head, it's much easier for us to see the truth within those things.